So let's talk now about how Hamlet's father, the ghost, asked for revenge. It is quite fitting that I'm here at USC standing next to the statue of Hecuba, who is a famous tragic figure, enraged and filled with the desire for revenge. It's also a funny joke. All those who dislike USC have also remarked that Shakespeare is misspelled on the statue. So Hamlet confronts the ghost of his father. And again, it is real within the context of the play, but also a manifestation of Hamlet's psychological state, his sense of guilt, or a sense of undone business. My father, methinks I see my father, Horatio. Where, my lord? In my mind's eye, Horatio. I saw him once. He was a goodly king. He was a man, take him for all in all. I shall not look upon his like again. Horatio, my lord, I think I saw him yesternight. Saw? Who? My lord, the king your father. The mind's eye. What's interesting about Hamlet is that everyone is misinterpreting his motivations. He's not politically motivated. That's the king's suspicion. Nor is he lovesick. That's Polonius' diagnosis in a very funny scene when he criticizes Hamlet's inability to write love poetry. By the time the ghost appears, he's no longer a young Hamlet in love, a mere foolish boy. Instead, something personal and horrifying is happening, whether he's haunting him in the real world, as we see him on stage, or haunting him in his mind. My hour is almost come, when I to sulphurous and tormenting flames must render up myself. He has to return to purgatory. He has to return to the purifying flames of purgatory. It's very Catholic. Alas, poor ghost, says Hamlet, pity me not, but lend thy serious hearing to what I shall unfold. Speak, I am bound to hear. So art thou to revenge. It's kind of a logic, right? Like I'm bound to hear and you are bound to revenge. So art thou to revenge when thou shalt hear. What? I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, and for the day confined to fast in fires, right? He has to do penance for his sins, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away. This is purgatory. But that I am forbid to tell the secrets of my prison house, I could a tale unfold whose lightest word would harrow up or torment thy soul, freeze thy young blood, make thy two eyes like stars start from their spheres, thy knotted and combed locks to part, and each particular hair to stand on end. In other words, what he would tell you would frighten you, like quills upon the fearful porcupine. But this eternal blazon, remember he's describing all the parts of the body, right, that it will scare you, must not be to ears of flesh and blood. List, listen, list, O list, if thou didst ever thy dear father love. This is pathos, right? He's being emotional. Oh God, revenge his foul and most unnatural murder. This is not about kingship. His father doesn't even give him any direction towards seizing the throne. It's all personal. His wife's incest, remember she's not married to the brother, and his own brother's betrayal or fratricide. This also seems juvenile, doesn't it? The thoughts of a boy, a young Hamlet maybe. I must kill the man who killed my father and sleeps with my mother. Haste me to know it, that I with wings as swift as meditation or the thoughts of love may sweep to my revenge, right? Like hurry and tell me and I can do the revenge. Q1 is shorter and rawer. Between the ghost's exit and the revenge and murder of King Claudius in Q1, it's only 1,588 lines. But in your combined standard Q2 F1 version, between the ghost exit and the revenge and murder that the play ends on, there are 3,077 lines. Plays during that period were shorter than that, than 3,777 lines. This means it takes Hamlet twice as long to kill him as he gets older in Q2 and F1. The delay is longer, as is the self-criticism. And again, what about the throne? Have they completely forgotten that? Or is the ghost suffering beyond the temporary positions of power? The seat on Fortune's wheel, or even Macbeth's table. As a ghost, he wants the truth of his death to be told, and he wants revenge for it. There's the rumor that sleeping in my orchard, a serpent stung me. So the whole ear of Denmark is by a forged process, a fabricated account of my death, rankly abused. But know, thou noble youth, the serpent that did sting thy father's life now wears his crown. Oh, my prophetic soul, my uncle? Aye, that incestuous, that adulterate beast, with witchcraft of his wits. In other words, he had these amazing abilities to hypnotize his wife. With traitorous gifts, he also tricked him. Oh, wicked wit and gifts that have the power so to seduce. Claudius's rhetorical powers of persuasion were so powerful. I mean, this is the devil and Eve being played out. The ghost will have to use his powers of persuasion, powers of seduce one to his shameful lust, the will of my most seeming virtuous queen, right? There's doubts now about her virtue. Oh, Hamlet, what falling off was there? From me, whose love was of that dignity that it went hand in hand even with the vow I made to her in marriage, and to decline upon a wretch whose natural gifts were poor to those of mine. It's a falling off and a decline. Think of the wheel from him to his brother, who is clearly inferior. Hamlet will make the same argument against his mother. Look here upon this picture and on this. The counterfeit presentment of two brothers. In other words, two painted portraits, right? They're counterfeits. They're not natural because they're not really there. They're just pictures. See what a grace was seated on this brow. He's talking about his father. Hyperion's curls, that's the sun god. The front of Jove himself. An eye like Mars to threaten and command. A station, or the way he stands, like the herald Mercury, new lighted on a heaven-kissing hill. This is called ekphrasis, the figure for the verbal or written description of an image. He's interpreting his father's picture in a godlike fashion. This was your husband. Look you now what follows. Here's your husband, looking at the other picture, like a mildewed ear of corn, right? Blasting his wholesome brother, infecting his wholesome brother. It's like a bad ear of corn. Have you eyes? Could you on this fair mountain, this beautiful mountain, leave to feed and batten on this moor, this like uncultivated land? Ha! Have you eyes? You cannot call it love. For at your age, the heyday in the blood, these sexual passions is tame. Remember, she's older. It's humble and waits upon the judgment, when you die. And what judgment would step from this good-looking husband and virtuous to this terrible one? His mother clearly lacks the faculty of judgment. She's made bad choices. She has eyes but cannot see. That's from the Bible. That's also love. His mom's in love with another man, but he loves his mother. And her sin, incest, and inconstancy, which is a theme you'll find that man and women are always in a constant state of change, nothing settles, will be answered in heaven, hell and damnation. And then the ghost continues, because this play is filled with big speeches. But virtue, as it never will be moved through lewdness, courted in a shape of heaven, so lust, though to a radiant angel linked, will sate itself in a celestial bed and prey on garbage. He's thinking allegorically. He's thinking of the allegorical figure of virtue, that personification of, good behavior. And virtue can never be moved or persuaded to fall into sin, even if lewdness, another allegorical figure, in this case the personification of lustful or lascivious or lecherous behavior, or pure debauchery or sensuality, tries to court or date this figure of virtue and pretends to take on the shape of heaven. That's the devil anyway. The devil always pretends to take on the shape of heaven because he's a simulator. He's a shapeshifter. Whereas the figure of lust, even if it is accompanied by an angel, will end up feeding itself or satiating itself with garbage. His wife, Queen Gertrude, is not virtuous. She's trash. But he warns Hamlet not to touch her. But the problem of his torment isn't just its betrayal or the usurpation, but that he died in a sinful state. This is a very Catholic idea. Thus was I, sleeping by a brother's hand, of life, of crown, of queen, at once dispatched, right? He was deprived with those ascendants. Cut off even in the blossoms of my sin. Remember, sin is like a flower, so it's always blooming. Unhoused, that means he wasn't given the Eucharist. Disappointed, he has no hope now, right? His hope for eternity is now cut. Unannaled, that means he had received no external unction, no final sacraments, no reckoning, no confession made. But sent to my account, your life is a book that has to be read at Judgment Day, with all my imperfections on my head. Oh, horrible, most horrible. That's obviously contraduplicatio. This is terrible. He's stuck in purgatory to purify his sin. He's not in hell because, remember, his love and virtue was conjoined. It's an important part. But he's angry because he's not in heaven. He was killed before he could confess. And he's not forgiving as well, right? Which you would think of, that's a Catholic virtue. His final statement is very haunting. Adieu, 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 remember me. Hamlet's decision to revenge his father's wrong is grounded in this need to remember. Remember thee? Aye, that poor ghost. While his memory holds a seat in this distracted globe, and think also of the theater. Remember thee? Yea, from the table of my memory, I'll wipe away all trivial fond records. He's going to wipe away in his book. Memory is like a book. It's like a notebook full of all sorts of different things. I think he's a teenager writing all sorts of interesting things. He's going to wipe out all the trivial stuff. All saws, those are like sayings of books, all forms, all pressures past, that youth and observation copied there, and thy commandment all alone shall live within the book and volume of my brain, unmixed with baser matter. People in this period would hold personal notebooks when they would copy things down that were interesting. He's going to erase all of them. That includes the love stuff with Ophelia and all those bad poems. And he's going to focus only on revenge. I have a former student who is reading Nietzsche right now, and she sent me a text to say that we also have to think of revenge as memory.
Alright guys, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell.